It's double feature week here at Hotline League. Episode 25 is airing just one day after episode 24. That's because we had such a great guest planned for tonight that we had to get him. We had to get him. There's so much going on. Actually, there's not that much going on, but it's a great time to get him because we can talk about everything we want to in the world. MSI is coming up. What's going on with TSM these days? We're going to find out because Parth is here on the show tonight to talk about all things TSM, League of Legends, and more. Such a great show for you guys tonight. It's all starting right now.
Hotline League is brought to you by Omen by HP.
Woohoo! We're here. We're here. That's right.
How do you know it's going to be a great show?
Because every show is a great show, Mark.
We don't plan anything.
No, but it always works out. It always works out. And that voice, that dulcet tone that you just heard coming in through your speakers, your headset, your headphones, whatever you're using, that's Mark Zimmerman, my constant co-host. How's it going, Mark?
Pretty good. Not much has changed in the 24 hours or less since you last saw me.
Talk to me about the last 22 hours of your life, Mark. Can you take me through it?
So I don't really remember that much. I think I watched some anime.
Okay.
I finished Made in Abyss. It was
Your life, I think you should. This is the moment when the fact that you've got nothing going on. This is when to start vlogging. I want to see a daily vlog of your life.
I'm telling you, the daily vlog will just be me in a chair or my bed.
That'd be
every
sick.
Day. I went out. I got like quarters to do laundry. I did some dishes, and then I went back to my room.
Nice. That's sick, man. I mean, that's the vlog I want to watch. I just want it to be like the camera angle changes. And every time the camera angle changes, it's been a couple hours, and you're just like, yep, just watched a couple more episodes of that anime I was watching 2 hours ago.
Did you see that video I made like last year, maybe like a year and a half ago, about like how bored I was waiting for the like LCS to start?
No.
Oh, this is a perfect time to do what you do, plug my own shit. You can introduce Parth though, because I'm not gonna like.
Okay. All right. Thank you for permission. Our next, besides my co-host, we're joined by a man that needs no introduction, yet I'm going to introduce him anyway. It's Parth from TSM, who's choosing this moment to take a drink of water. Parth, how's it going?
Not too bad.
Do you want to explain?
You finally wore me down.
Yes.
Travis has been trying to get me to do this show since it started, and after 20 dates, he was finally like.
That's actually what happened. Was I said, Parth, do you or anyone from TSM want to come on the show? We'll take any of the players. That'd be great. And Parth said, if you can't find anyone, like after 24 hours, he's like, if you can't find anyone else, I'll do it because no one else wants to. that was what he said. So this is the one TSM person we were able to secure. But you know what? It's the most important TSM person. You know, there's a lot of people, they talk about Bjerg, talk about Hanser, they talk about whoever. But it's really about this guy right here. He's the person that makes it happen. Parth, actually, you want to explain a little bit about yourself for those that don't know your role at TSM?
Sure. So, brief history of me with TSM. I joined them as an analyst back in 2015. 2016, 2017, I was kind of there doing management work. Then I became a coach for a year and a half, and then I'm back working at the office. I kind of
back as the coach? Is that the off-season?
Yeah, that's the off-season scoop.
Yeah.
No. I work with both League of Legends teams, both the academy and the main team. My job is pretty boring. So yeah, that's me.
That's hype, man.
You used to be a Boeing engineer or something, right?
I don't know we want to go that far back. I mean, that's even more boring, so.
Parth,
Yeah,
what
but it
was your
sounds
sixth
hypey,
grade
'cause it's like
elective?
you build
that took?
747s.
Yeah. I do know how to build a fuselage of a 747. Get me some like composite pre-preg, and I can crank one out for you.
Okay.
What if I got you some empty boxes? What could you build me?
I can give you a nicer looking box.
That's
I
sick.
can draw stuff on it.
If anybody wants to call into the show tonight and ask about 747 fuselages, we can totally make that happen.
I actually probably can't because I was in the R&D group, and a lot of what I did was under NDA, so
Okay.
maybe not.
Well,
Yeah, when does that lift? Ever? Is that ever like?
isn't it
I
like
don't know,
after it's come out?
I
or
never
if
asked.
thing? You should ask right now. Send a text message to Mr.
Your
Boss.
boss.
Boeing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Parth is here. There's a lot of hype around it. Life is great. Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about how this show works since Parth is unfamiliar?
Yeah.
Wait. I watch every episode, Travis. I log in at 8 p.m. every Monday.
And you wait
watch
20
every
minutes.
show. Yeah, that's what I meant. And then I watch the segments that happen, which Mark will now explain to you.
Yeah. What is your favorite episode so far, Parth?
The one with you and Mark in it.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
great.
Yeah. There has been a couple of those, actually.
How did you like our live show?
I realized that you guys did a live show because I was watching the Twitch stream before this thing started. So that seemed cool. And I wish I'd seen it when it was live.
All right, Parth, you fucking.
Mark, just
Mike
explain how the show works.
If Mike Young's here, you want to swap out Parth? Just get Mike Young on.
Mike didn't. Yeah, whatever. Just go, Mark.
All right. So the way the show works for people who have not been here before, we have a Discord server. I'll be spamming the link in a second. You're going to want to join the Discord server. When you are there are text channels and there are voice channels. You're going to need to, Travis changed all the names, so you're going to need to call into the pleb calls, join that group.
Or the subs.
Or the subs if you are a sub to this channel. And then I'm going to pull you from there, but you're going to put your takes or your questions or whatever in the text channel general. So that's where you'll write things. Oh, wait, no, there's actual different channels. See, I'm fucked here. There's actually a text channel called Plebs Call In. That's where you're going to put all your takes. So if you want to say Parth was a great coach, Parth was the best coach North America's ever had, Parth was the worst coach, whatever it is, whatever your hot take is, post it in there. And then I'll pull you into the waiting room. We'll do a mic check, and then you'll join the room.
Very good. So before we get into calls, just a quick bit of conversation. Parth, I don't know, has there been any content or any interviews or anything? Did I miss anything around like what happened with TSM following the loss in playoffs?
No.
Okay, great. Well, then you're the first person that we get to talk to about this. What
Excellent.
happened with TSM in the playoffs?
They lost.
Oh.
Very early on.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So we definitely talked to, and by that I mean me and Andy. We talked to the players and coaches a little bit afterward. The biggest problem that TSM had going into the season was the players and coaches weren't really organized in the way that they needed to be, because Ben and Mithy were coming from EU and had like a different expectation of how a team is run. Bjerg and Kevin had one expectation, and Song and Lustboy were sort of used to their system of coaching. And when the three sort of came together, it was kind of a really weird mishmash where neither of the parties wanted to step on each other's toes in terms of how to really do things. And they slowly had to figure it out as the season went on. So what I mean by that is like, it's everything from fundamentally from like, how do you run practice to how do you approach prep for games to like, what kind of stuff are you looking at when you scout opponents? Like all of that needed to be built from scratch to suit the current team that we had, because everyone takes, processes, and uses information differently. So even though we were able to sort of iron out a lot of the kinks during the regular season, towards like week 9, between week 9 and our quarters, I don't think that the staff and players really had the right mindset in terms of preparation for Clutch. And so I think when we did end up playing against them, a lot of that it wasn't even nerves, it was just lack of preparation that it ended up into being bad play. And in the middle of the series, we just didn't have the adaptations that we needed in order to win. So that's like the long-winded answer. But mostly I think Clutch did a pretty good job of identifying what they were good at, and they just had like a game plan, and we just didn't respect that as much.
By the way, not to ignore what Parth was just saying, but I think a lot of people in the Discord are just putting questions in. We can pull some questions, but it's much more interesting when you guys have like a take. You know, we don't want this just to be a Q&A show. Like, you should call in and say like, I think Clutch was actually terrible and it's crazy TSM lost. Or I think
Wait. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Clutch was very good, and we should have won that match, but we just didn't do the right things in order to.
See, that's an example of a take that you could have, not a question. Another one would be, I think TSM lost because of best of threes, or I think Team Liquid's going to win MSI. It doesn't have to be constrained to just Parth or TSM. So that's the type of stuff that we tend to like the most, is some interesting calls and interesting takes.
Yeah, I don't remember what I pulled thus far, so we'll see what we get.
Great.
And then maybe I'll start looking for hotter takes if it's just a Q&A. But who knows? Maybe that's what we want.
Mark, do you have any questions for Parth before we get in?
So I don't know if this is on the way yet, and I know I already asked him this in person, but I'd love just to have him talk about it. This is the first time TSM has ever had a legitimate off season, the way that like other teams have had when you just get knocked out. Because TSM's always the one representing us at different international competitions, or at the very least, they make it to the finals. And here they're out early. They got nothing to do. And I just want to ask Parth, how does it feel?
It fucking sucks. I mean, more than losing, like, I don't even care that, like, it sucks that we lost, but it sucks that we now have nothing to do for like 2.5 months, whatever it is. I think people talk about how going to tournaments leads to burnout a lot, but that's, I guess, kind of because I've never had to see the other side of it, which is the teams that don't make it are just sitting around for like 2 or 3 months and don't have anything to do. So I think, if anything else, the motivation to win next split is going to be more, we don't want to be dicking around for 4 months after if we don't make it to Worlds.
I mean, it's weird in that this, like, I feel, talking to the TSM players, I remember how exhausting it was for them to, like, decide if they were going to go to All-Stars at the end of the year because they had so little time off. It's kind of strange that now, I mean, obviously unfortunate that it came from a loss, but that now it's the other world where it's like, actually, we need more time to play.
I don't know. That was my personal take. Yeah, it wasn't like representative of the players.
Well, you said it's going to be the major motivation for the team going into summer.
Well, it's going to be my major motivation to help the team move forward.
So I think there's also maybe will be helping the team, Parth?
As a manager, I kind of have to. So, yeah.
I was going to say also, like, there's probably some middle ground as well between, like, we get knocked out and have 3 months off, and, like, we literally never get a break. I'm sure there's something in the middle there that's a little bit more workable.
Yeah. And All-Stars is a little bit different because All-Stars is not like even though it was framed as a very like competitive tournament, I don't think that a lot of pros that went to it really had that mindset or treated it that way.
Right. All right. Well, should we go ahead and start gathering people? I do want to really quickly, Mark. I just want to give a shout out to some people who hit up the sub system. The Hippie Steve, Chadley X, Brandanian, Smallung, Vizino, who says hi, have a great day, homie, your friend Hugh. Golf82, Bobacola gifted a sub to Kapalulu. It's Volks. And we should be getting that next caller any minute into the call. Tuberman 1325, OG 4717, Shasti. And Tuberman 1325 sent 2,000 bits and says, can half of this go to Mark? It's great. Mark's not in the channel, so he won't know. Oh, hey, Mark.
I haven't heard that joke before.
Argent is here. Argent, where are you calling from?
I'm from Mexico City.
From Mexico City. Okay, well, welcome to the show. I just turned you up. You're a little quiet. But what would you like to talk about on the show today?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
I think you're good now. What would you like to talk about?
Hey, I actually want to ask Parth's opinion as a coach. Reckless was recently in Korea.
Yep.
And he said, basically he's saying that Korean solo queue is harder than the EU final. And then he's explained that he signed a 3-year contract with Fanatics and etc. But then he said before signing that contract, he considered and he several Korean and Chinese teams, saying basically, I'm willing to put on the work. I will learn the language. Will do whatever it takes. Regions and a single team spoke to him, say anything to him. And now we know that the Korean teams are looking forward to a 10-man roster, so we know they are looking for players. And what do you think about Reckless, opinion? Like, is it realistic for an EU player to say, I can join a Korean team and make it to Worlds? Because he said that, like, won't join just any team. He doesn't want a challenger team. He wants one of the big teams. And he said, I can join any Korean team and make it to Worlds and win. Is it realistic of him, or is he just being a little confident because he won the EU championship?
Okay. So Reckless went over to Korea. He obviously thinks the competition over there is better because he said the solo queue is a more difficult challenge than the EU finals.
And just chiming in real quick on that point, Reckless knows how to make fans. That's what I'll say. Reckless knows what people like to hear, and he knows how to put on a show, as we've seen from his onstage stuff. So, yeah.
Okay.
We'll go with that.
So
that's my opinion on what he said.
So either way, he said that. But he also said, and during the All-Star time when I interviewed him, I think with other people, that he had opportunities with Korean and Chinese teams. So is it reasonable that we could see an EU player that he could have gone over and competed on in China or Korea on one of the top teams?
I don't think mechanically that Reckless is any far off from any of the top 80 carries in Korea that you see right now. But the biggest thing is you have to be able to speak Korean fluently, and not just that. In order for a player to move to a different country and speak a different language, you also have to deal with a lot of cultural differences. The problem that a lot of people don't really see about players coming to NA from Korea, for example, is that even though they slowly learn English and they can do interviews and they can speak enough English in order to play the game and communicate with their teammates, there's also a big cultural aspect of how do you live in an environment, a coaching structure that is completely different than their own. And I think Reckless would find the Korean training regimen and then the way they do things and just the environment a lot harder than he would have if he was just talking about his mechanical skill. So if he was just talking about oh, I'm good enough to play on a team, then I'm sure he is. But if he's actually considering doing that in terms of communication, environment, and everything else, I don't think it's super realistic for an EU player who doesn't already speak Korean to go and do that.
So sorry, is it because he doesn't speak Korean, or do you think it's because of the training regimen?
Oh, no. Training regimen is just part of it. It's just the entire environment of how Korea does things versus China does things versus NA does things is just very different. Regionally, there's very different cultural aspects of how everything is done. And I do think that it takes a lot of time for players to adjust, if they even end up adjusting at all. And I think that realistically, Western players who have grown up in NA or EU, who've gone through that system, is going to be really hard for them to adapt to anything else.
What about the Korean and Chinese systems do you think it is that is so difficult? Because obviously we have instances where Korean and Chinese players have come to America. They seem to really like it here, to the extent that some of them we talk about using it as a retirement plan, right?
It's a distribution. I don't think everyone has liked it. I think almost conversely, few people like it or have actually used that to get more successful. I think that's true. I think that's a true fact.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty true. I mean, even people who might enjoy some of the lifestyle advantages that come from playing here, there's the actual Parth talking about the structure things, in terms of just not in the Korean structure, everyone talks about how important the coach is and they tell you what to do and all this stuff. It's in especially Europe, from my understanding, it's more free flowing in terms of players having control over things, and getting told what to do is a big deal, and then getting told what to do in a different language is a big deal, and then getting told what to do and then having no one else to talk about or bitch to about what you're getting told. There's a lot of layers on top of it, and that's been felt even by Korean players coming to North America. If they get told what to do, but they don't like they don't speak the language as well. They have a hard time expressing their concerns with what they're getting told to do, and like you just can't have a full out like good conversation about it.
Yeah.
Even with a translator, which adds just like another layer.
Does that make sense for you, Argent? Or any other kind of follow-up questions?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask, with think what NA is trying to do improve not only the region.
Sorry, you're kind of breaking up, Argent.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah. Can you repeat that part? Sorry.
Okay. With the franchising, I think DNA is trying to improve the region and also improve the players. In some years, like let's say 5 years into franchising, 10 years into franchising, we see NA players going to other regions? Because right now we only see Korean, Chinese players, EU players coming to NA, but we don't really see NA players going to other regions. Do you think it will be possible?
It'll never happen. I'll say that. That's my opinion. Because we don't have anyone, like we have a smaller player base than the other 3 major regions by a substantial margin, like million plus less than the other 3 quote unquote major regions. So like if someone comes along who is so talented that they should go across the seas, someone's going to pay for that guy, especially with franchising like that. If that guy's so good that Korea wants him or China wants him, like that means he's a stud. Pick that guy up. He'll be your franchise player for forever. Don't let him go across the ocean.
So I think it could happen, but it only happens in like a pretty apocalyptic scenario where NALCS collapses.
So
yeah.
Well, I mean,
she did say it's like 5 years into franchising and everything is more stable, not like.
Oh yeah, in a world where it's
not like right now, like 5 years and 10 years later.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I mean, I could see that. Like, let's say franchising fails, which I think is not a crazy. Like, I think hopefully this will work, and I think the chances are it'll work. But even if there's a 10 or 20% chance that it doesn't work, and the teams don't get what they want, and all this money pulls out, and like salaries drop, and NALCS North America becomes like just a series of tournaments because they can't really support a league anymore, right? Can't find the sponsors or whatever. Then we start to become kind of like what StarCraft used to be, where you did have Western players going to Korea to compete because that was where the premier tournaments were, and there wasn't much to keep them around in North America.
Yeah, I guess if the question is barring an economic collapse of the North American scene, then sure, anything's possible. I don't know what that future looks like.
As long as NA exists, good NA talent will stay here.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying an economic collapse is impossible either. I'm just saying that wasn't the situation.
Yeah.
It's hard for anyone to want to leave the best region in the world. Argent, thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate it. I think you're saying thank you, but you're kind of breaking up, so I'll just assume it. Thank you so much. All right. So thanks again to Argent for calling in. Jordan resubbed for 4 months. Cade Mon 98, Mizaroli, the Ross Geller have all subbed. Thank you guys so much for your support of the show. Mark is back, and with him is Raging Pianist. That is a person who plays the piano.
Angrily.
Yes, indeed. Very angrily.
He is
Angrily,
angrily
yes.
beating the keys of the piano.
Yes.
Yes,
Do
sir.
you play the piano?
Yeah, I've been playing for like 20 years now. so-
Okay. Is it a profession for you?
No, I'm trying to pass the bar exam now.
Oh,
I'm a
okay.
lawyer.
And that's not helping you, the piano.
Oh, no, it definitely helps. But,
Oh, okay.
it's just a stress relief thing.
Nice. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Brooklyn.
From Brooklyn. Nice. Okay.
Yep.
So what would you
I
like?
actually,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I actually met you at MSG.
I remember that.
2015.
It was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
great to see you, man.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sweet.
that was a great moment for me during that. What do you want to talk about on the show?
No, so I just wanted to talk about the fact that Parth was an analyst just like Mark, and he made his way up to head coaching position. He was helping people out, like he transitioned into it. Now he's not coaching, but he's still working with the team. And, we're talking about Mark, what he's doing these days. He's at home, we don't know. We should get a camera, see what he's up to, watch an anime. But, Parth, I think you need to give him some motivation, get some coaching or do something. He has the skills. can't be working at that right analyst desk forever.
So wait.
So
What
you
is
want
the
me
premise of this
to
call?
on air?
He wants you to pitch me on joining a team, I guess, or something.
Okay.
Essentially, it's just I don't know. I feel like Mark has a lot of skills too, and I think he did. I personally thought he would be the head coach of Liquid at some point, but it never happened. And I'm a big Liquid fan, so I don't know. I want to see him do something.
So Parth, why should Mark forsake his job? He's not, actually, I should say forsake his job. He's literally just sitting around on his ass watching anime all day. So what?
Well, all right. So hold on, just real quick, because Twitch chat's blowing me up saying I picked this guy for this. I picked him because one of the things he said in the Discord message was about transitioning not only from coaching but transitioning from coaching to a team. And I want to pick Parth's brain because I also tried to do that and didn't find it fulfilling. So that's where I thought this question was going, not pitching me on coming back to coach somewhere.
No, yeah, just generally the transition.
Well, first off, I actually still like the question of Parth. Why should Mark go back to coaching or working with a team instead of doing what he's doing now?
Damn, I can't sell Mark on it because I'm not coaching anymore. If I thought coaching was like awesome or fulfilling enough. Coaching is a lot of stress, and you work, I don't know, like you literally think about League nonstop and your players and everything is gonna go on. Everything's gonna happen that weekend. What happens if you don't make like playoffs? What happens if you don't get finals for the first time? What happens if you don't make worlds? What happens if you don't get out of groups? You're constantly thinking about, oh, this player needs to learn this stuff. Oh, this player isn't getting along with this in the last week. It's literally just like a giant thing of stress for like 12 to 14 hours a day. And then the 2 hours you're watching VODs. Watching VODs is like the most relaxing part of any coach's day. Anyone will tell you. So yeah, I can't really pitch Mark on coaching because his life seems pretty chill right now.
All right, so what was the follow-up? Was the transition out of coaching?
Well, so I think what I interpreted what Raging Pianist was saying, he can correct me, was like, that's what I said.
Okay.
Raging Pianist. He was saying something about transitioning also from coaching to then like management stuff at a team and staying with the team as opposed to like when you're done coaching, just leaving, which is what I did.
Sure.
So I don't know why you have found that fulfilling because I didn't find it that way.
Yeah, because when I first joined TSM, I wasn't really intending to stay in when I first joined, I wasn't even looking to be like an analyst or part of like a professional team. I was more interested in esports like as a whole, and the industry. And so part of that, after we lost 2015 Worlds, that's when I talked to Andy and asked him if there were opportunities for me like on the management side to work with sponsors, work with other teams, because it was more interesting of a space for me. And it still is. And then the second thing is I enjoy working with like super driven people like Andy and Bjerg, and just being around them and helping support them in any way it can, plus learning more about the space is something that I think is really fun and cool. So it was super easy for me to transition into this role because I might not have like the best game knowledge, but I can organize things and players and everything pretty well. And so that's the sort of the skill set that I can use and leverage that to the position I have right now.
Gotcha. Do you have any other kind of follow-up conversation points, Raging Pianist?
Well, I mean, as someone who I'm planning on eventually, hopefully working within the industry, like I've talked to Bryce Bloom. He helped me when I was in law school with like some papers and stuff. I don't know, maybe you guys have some tips on what I can do to try to, get my foot in the door, essentially.
Well, what do you do?
And so,
He wants to be a lawyer.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, ideally, I'd like to work, as like a player agent or something, but just in any role, really, to just get my foot in the door and work. Because I've been, even when I was in law school, I wrote like research papers on legal issues back in like 2015. A lot of them, like franchising and stuff like that, already occurred. But, I just kind of want to get my foot in the door. And I don't know if you guys have any tips or anything.
I think it's hard for us to give too much help around being like a player agent or esports lawyer, since it's a little bit different than us. I think I would encourage you to do it though, because I think that there's a first off, I don't know how much money there is to be made in that business, because a couple of esports are doing really well, but others aren't. So you're probably going to like try to get involved with some sort of startup or something that's going to do the stuff. But I think that there's a really big need for player agents and other kind of like lawyer-ish professionals in the space. It's hard for me to figure out who to refer people to in certain situations where I'm just like, I don't like this person's, random player needs this or random personality or whatever. Like, I just don't know. Oftentimes I'm like, there's nobody who I can really refer you to, or maybe there is. I don't know if they're very good at what they do. So I think it's a good path. I just don't. It's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird one. But I would talk to the people in the space, but I also wouldn't be afraid of like trying to kind of strike out on your own. It's just somehow you have to kind of start to build trust somehow.
Yeah. My biggest thing is like I live in Brooklyn. I live in New York, and everything happens in LA. So that's going to be
you
the
have to
biggest
move
transition.
to LA. If you want to work
exactly.
in esports in North America, you have to do it in LA, unless you can maybe kind of make it work in the Bay Area. But outside of California, you're pretty much screwed.
Well, also, I would say, like, esports isn't some like magical land of shit and stuff. Like, it's an industry like anything else. So treat it like an industry like anything else. Like, how do you apply to a job at a Fortune 500 company, or how do you apply to a job at Wall Street? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's not any different. Like, there's a number of people who have player reps. You're going to go find out what's one of the companies they work for. For example, PressX is one that people work for. Find some contacts there, email them, It's there's not like a silver bullet tip. It's a job that you're hunting for, like any other job that anyone else hunts for. So treat it like that. And it's not this like connections only have to somehow get your foot in the door. I didn't have a foot in the door. I don't know how Parth got involved. I just blindly emailed Steve and impressed him. So like blindly emailed
Parth
impressed
built
him,
and
can't
sent a fuselage to Andy, and was like, look at what I
he
can
built
do
a plane and flew it.
Yeah.
Here, Andy. No, how did I get? Oh, I was just writing. I just took basically a year off, started writing a bunch of shit. At one point, I put it up on Reddit, and I hit the front page, and then random people just started contacting me. And then I slowly built my connections.
That's also how Ovi did it. Ovi's a friend of mine that works at Catalyst, and I think that his story was he was about to take the bar exam, and then decided he wanted to like go full time into esports. So he's like right there. He could have done it, but decided not to. So you should probably still take your bar exam. But if you wanna look up Ovi, you might be able to like. He's a pretty friendly guy. His Twitter handle is esports guy. I think he might have some advice for you too, if you can get him to reply to you.
All right, yeah, that's very helpful, because I wasn't sure if it's like Mark was saying, if it's connection based or if it's not connection based. I thought most of the time it's connection based, but
I mean, like,
to hear.
Every industry will be somewhat connection based, and connections obviously help, but like a lot of us got started not because our friends dragged us in here. Most of us we found our opportunity. Yeah, we did something. We found our opportunity, and then we made it so people didn't want to say no to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, everybody wants to say no to me, but I just, I make it happen.
Well, yeah, Travis did it based off connections. He just became best friends with North America's best
player.
All right,
let's move on. Hey, thank you so much, Raging Penis, for your call. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. Oh, we lost Mark. Damn it, Mark. I need to do a commercial. Wait, we're gonna go in the waiting room. We're gonna see what happens when Mark. I'm gonna do the commercial.
Always say that he's.
All right, I told him. I don't know what was going on there, but I hope he heard me. Listen, everybody. It's time to talk about something awesome, and that awesome thing, it's Omen by HP. It is. They are our sponsor. They've been supporting the show since a little bit into this year. I think they are the first and only sponsor we've ever had. So I want to, it's really nice. It's really nice that they support the show. Twitch chat, you always go crazy for this. I know I've seen a lot of people tweet about them, about the show and their support. I've seen Mark is doing something. Hopefully not showing a competitor product.
No, showing the headset. Okay. It's clear. In that shot, you should go full screen. Yes, that was great.
I've got their laptop right behind me. I'll be bringing this with me to MSI if for when I go. It's probably more of a win at this point. But they make this whole thing work. And I super appreciate it. I know you guys do. I see people talk about them on Reddit. I see people talk about them on Twitter. They support everything from Overwatch League all the way down to this show. But you know what? I honestly kind of feel like you guys are such big fans of the show. You're even louder in your support of Omen by HP than those Overwatch people. I don't see people tweeting about their support of Overwatch League. I think it's safe to say you guys have embraced them so much that, I don't know. I'm not in the meetings, but they might even think that this is a better investment. I want to thank you guys so much for supporting Omen by HP. They do a lot of really cool things. We're probably going to do a little giveaway soon. You can check out their Twitch page. It's twitch.tv/Omen by HP. They create content with CLG, which is an LCS team that they sponsor. They've just been doing a lot of really great stuff. I'm sure they've got even cooler stuff around the corner. And I don't know, man. I just, they're great. Mark thinks they're great because they're probably the only income he has right now.
Only active income, for sure.
Okay, yeah. And so that's the whole point here. Oh, Mark can eat because of Omen by HP. He'd be...
The only reason I have this California Chicken Cafe Arnold Palmer is because of HP by Omen.
No, but legitimate. We joke around, but they're a great sponsor. I want to thank them so much. You guys should follow them on Twitter. You should follow them on Twitch. You should hit them up. It's really cool that they support the show. They create awesome products that I use all the time. I'm using the monitor right now. I'm using the desktop to broadcast it. They've supported a ton of cool stuff that I've done. Hopefully I have some more cool stuff coming with them soon in the future that I'll be able to talk about. And so thank you so much to Omen by HP for sponsoring the show. All right, Mark, I think we're ready for our next caller.
Omen by HP. What'd I say?
Yeah, the next caller. Did you say HP by Omen?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the gaming brand has gotten so big, it's supporting the whole thing.
They bought them out.
Thick Gravy is on the show tonight. How's it going, Thick Gravy?
Great.
That's good. That's good to hear, man. Where are you calling from?
Could be going bad.
From Tokyo, Japan.
From Tokyo, Japan. We've had so many international callers recently. That's so cool. I have not been to Japan. It's like on my tier 1 list of places I need to go. I hope that I can go soon. Hey, tell me, is the League of Legends community cool there?
The university is like they're having campaign on like leagues so hard, but on the general player, I think it's not that much.
Not that many people. Well, do you have friends that play?
Really pushing League of Legends a lot.
Yeah. Do you have friends that play League? Like, do you have a good amount of friends in?
Not Japanese.
Oh, okay. Well, I still hope to visit. I think it's pretty cool. Do you watch? This is the last personal question I'll ask. Do you watch a lot of anime? Because Mark is a big anime guy.
Not these days.
That's the answer I was looking for. Thank you so much, The Gravy.
You
What do you want to
watch
talk about on
more
the show
anime than
today?
Japanese guy.
On your interview on YouTube on your channel, when you interview Double Leaf or Bjerg, they always defending Part and like always mention that Part is like the best coach they ever had. Like, I just want to ask Part personally, like how close you are with your player and like until you got your like so many respect from them.
Parth, what is it about your time as a coach that allowed you to command such respect from the players? Like, what did you do that's deserving of this?
First of all, I'm still close with a lot of the players, even the ones that went to different teams. Like, I still get food with Peter sometimes, or Vincent. I would get food with Dennis, but he always bails on me. So, Dennis, calling you out right now. I wouldn't say, like, I still don't think that I'm not the complete coach that a team, or at least an LCS team, needs to be. I was just very good at taking it and using the information that the players had and organizing them in a way that made sense. Because I think the one strength that pro players have is that they have a lot of in-depth knowledge of how to play the game, how to play their role. But what they don't understand is how like the whole system kind of fits together. Like, how should player A sacrifice in order for B to happen? How can the decisions that we make now impact like the next 10 minutes of the game? And so I think while I don't think I ever had like the concrete or the best answers, I think it's equally a skill of a coach to be able to both come up with like a theory or recognize like what you need to change, gather feedback, and figure out like a process of here's how we're going to figure this problem out. And then you go from step A to step B to step C, and then either resolve the problem or make sure that at least it is, you've concluded that discussion to at least some sort of satisfaction so you can move on. The hardest thing about like coaching or working with a professional team is you can always recognize problems, and that's always true. Like even Reddit or analysts outside of the team will recognize the problems that a team is having. But the biggest challenge is how do you take the problem that you recognize and go about solving it? And I think I just had like a good skill set for problem solving and not necessarily having like a base knowledge of the problems that existed.
Yeah.
So I think the big thing I also did that I think other coaches kind of overdo is I never overstepped the thing in the part aspects of my job that I wasn't good at. So like I wouldn't try to like discipline my players super hard because that's not like the personality I have, or I wouldn't like enforce like my personal beliefs about X part of the game because I recognize that they have like a stronger skill set in that regard. Like I would never tell Bjergsen how to play his lane because there's no way that I would know better than he would. But I see a lot of coaches that mess up that kind of try to do both of those things. And it's like one of the things that I kind of really don't like.
Yeah, so I think like for a concrete example, like I'm sure if someone asked Parth, like, what do you think about how this matchup plays? Like I think what he's saying is like, he's not the guy who's gonna be like, oh, I've played that matchup because I'm a super high rated player. And like, rather than giving you the answer of how to play that matchup, he would probably be able to work you through different ways to play the matchup. And then like the player could find it themselves. So it's like the difference of having an answer and then being able to find an answer for somebody or help them find it. Right.
Yeah.
One thing that I know from Peter is that I think part of the reason is that you command a lot of respect from these players is you don't just come in as strictly a coach. I feel like you also like are a pretty good mentor to, young adults that are kind of trying to figure out how to make it in the world. Do you think that that's fair? Because I feel like you've mentored these guys and given them a lot of help and like support in areas that aren't just in the game or as a team.
I think just naturally every coach and person in like a position of authority when they're working with anyone from like 18 to 23-year-olds has to be a little bit of a mentor. I don't think I like went out of my way to do that. I actually think that.
And you grab dinner with these guys still and like check in on them.
Dude, I mean, I'm not like I genuinely enjoy and care for them and enjoy their company.
Yeah, Tony doesn't get dinner with Peter. I know Tony watches this show.
Yeah, I don't get food with anybody either.
Yeah. I mean,
I think stands out. He's so sociable. Can't you tell by his love of coming on talk shows with his friends?
No, because I like philosophically, I really believe that if you're going to be in competitive League of Legends or anything like a high level of competition where like there's 67 million people who play this game, and if you want to be at some point the best, despite how hard that may seem, like everyone who's been on TSM has the goal that you have the base skill in order to compete with everyone, even the best teams. You just have to get there at a certain point, and you have to be willing to do the grind. And my philosophy was just based around the idea that you have to work harder than everyone else and smarter than everyone else, and then everything else kind of just falls into place from that. Like I don't think I did very much special than like care for the players that I had and go through like the philosophies of how we wanted to treat everything that we did.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, I think you're probably underselling yourself a little bit just based off what I've seen, at least in the esports scene, where I always felt like there were a lot of people who just like lacked a lot of general competencies beyond like the specifics of being good at League of Legends. And I always felt like that was one of the things that I brought. And I'm sure you were very much the same way, where it's like, you should be doing things that, like, you should think about these outcomes. And it was a lot more about like general problem solving and logic and rationale and like procedure than it was about like, yo, this is the best way to play Azir versus Victor. And like, while that's useful, you also have 5 players who are pros, and like a coach bringing in something that's more lacking in the scene was, at least when I was coaching, but I was, I started when there weren't really it wasn't any infrastructure. Like that was way more valuable in my mind than like, hey, here's another, like, here's how I think we should play 2v1s, guys, even though like, I did plenty of that as well.
I think it'll become more prominent in the next 3 or 5 years, because first there needs to be a scene in which like good competition needs to exist, and then you need good coaches who devote a lot of time to learn all of the skills that they need to. And then on top of that, there's also going to be players who retire who are actually more competent than the ones that we see currently coaching and running professional teams. So I think in 4 to 5 years, it will trend in that direction. I just don't think that the scene is there yet, and there's nothing you can do except wait and give it time.
Yeah, I don't think you can just like brute force by like I think a couple teams tried it, TSM one as well, where they tried to bring in like more experienced coaches from the outside world and teach them League of Legends, and I would say that universally failed. Like I don't think anyone.
I mean, we've at TSM, since I've been there, we've gone through every sort of iteration of like a type of coach. First, we had like Loco, who was like the first coach. I think in NA, I want to say that's true. And then after Loco, we sort of tried the outside approach.
I think Monty was before, right, for CLG.
Yeah, technically Monty was the first.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, like Monty, Loco era. I still think in order to coach a team like this, you have to be on site. But yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, like Mark, like there's no way you can, like remote coaching is just way too hard.
There's too many social dynamics that you will never get told about if you're not there to witness them. Yeah. And like, as the coach, you need to be able to fix those. And it's just like, you have to be there.
Yeah. Like at TSM, we went through Loco, and then the next plan was we're going to get like a 2-man system where one person works on just everything outside of the game, which is supposed to be Casey, and then we got Jarge. I think both were not necessarily qualified for their positions when we hired them. So that's kind of where I was a stopgap. And then I recognized that when I started coaching, I was super deficient at recognizing like a lot of dynamics in terms of how to build habits, how to recognize parts of communication. That's actually 2 things that Weldon really helped me with when he joined the team in the end of 2016, that I did better at 2017. But then I do think that last Worlds, I hit like I basically hit a plateau, in which I don't think I could influence the team faster than the other coaches who had higher base knowledge than I did, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Andy's part in TSM right now.
What is Andy's role in TSM? Is that what you're asking?
Like, what is his like role?
Andy is the CEO of the company. He actually hasn't, outside of being to the LCS games, he actually hasn't interacted with the team very much. He wanted this year to be like the year where he takes a step back. He assembled the roster and the staff that we were looking for. And yeah, outside of like going to LCS games and cheering the team on and cursing very loudly when we lost, I don't think Andy's been involved at all.
So there's a couple of things in Twitch chat, and like a couple of the callers are already asking some questions similar to this, so we might actually end up having to jump callers pretty quickly. But somebody's asking why does a coach need to know matchups if that's going to be a player responsibility thing? And my opinion on it is like the coach helps the players see the big picture, and if you don't understand the matchup, you're not going to be able to like help get the team aligned at all, because it's like, yeah, we'll just play GPNR and it'll be fine. But like, if you don't understand, that your top laner is going to need pressure at points or maybe need help if he's struggling like just knowing the matchup so that you can help inform the rest of the team how that matchup's going to go is really important. So you need to be able to understand matchups, but it's not necessarily like this is exactly how you play it and these are the good counter picks and like that situation. Like you need to be able to work with the player. That's my take on it.
Even if you don't understand matchups, you need to know enough to contextualize the information the players tell you. Like the players can be like, oh, I can win this matchup like 90% of the time, and then you watch the games and you're like, oh, that's not necessarily true, and you have to distinguish between like the player being overconfident versus the player like actually being accurate and not going right in the particular scrim because X, Y, and Z things happened. So you definitely need enough knowledge to be able to form a context around the information that's thrown around.
Cool. Hey, I want to thank you so much for calling in, Thick Gravy. I really appreciate it. All the way from Japan.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. Thanks. All right. Moving on to the next caller. Really quickly, we've got Miseroli subbed, the Ross Geller, Kaito subbed, Ateo Rachel sent 100 bits. Thank you, Rachel. Rachel is one of the founders of Ateo. I'm wearing their hoodie right now on stream. You guys can check them out. They're a friend of mine. They do cool stuff. They did sponsor 2 of my videos, but this is not a sponsored show by them. But the hoodie is very comfortable. Mark bullied his way into one. Kind of. Hey, Mark. XL182SS is on the show. What are you? Where are you calling from, XL?
I'm calling from San Jose, California.
From San Jose, California. A little closer than Tokyo. How's San Jose?
Cold, but good.
Cold, but good. Okay. What do you want to talk about in the show today?
I want to ask Parth, especially after Worlds 2017, I think it was. You got a lot of heat from Reddit and Twitter and social media in general. Mm-hmm. Personally, I feel a lot of it was not unfair. But I was curious if you ever gotten any not positive, but any feedback that you actually use with the team and with yourself and with the organization overall.
I don't understand the question.
He was asking, like, has Reddit ever actually been a useful source of feedback where you're like, oh, that might be a problem, or oh, that's an interesting stat, or something like that? I think
you kind of touched on it on the last caller, but I was curious if you had like specific examples.
The only one example that pops into my head was when RuneGlaive Ezreal first became a thing. That's it. Like someone made a post about it. I looked it up. I'm like, holy shit. Like messaged Bjerg and he's like, holy shit. And then we spammed the shit out of it that week and we played it both games that weekend.
Did you lose both those games?
What? No, we won one, lost one.
They won one, yeah.
We barely won one.
Was that which was it later than that you had that Vi game with the Ezreal?
That was the second game, I think.
Okay, because I remember watching that week's TSM Legends, and I remember scrimming you guys that fucking week, and it was just the most obnoxious bullshit ever.
I mean, that champion with that item was obnoxious bullshit.
Yeah, that was so funny.
What is the general relationship with Reddit? Do you ever tell the players not to read it, like if they're having a slump?
The younger players, like I'll tell Mike sometimes to keep off Reddit because when he first joined, but all the other players are sort of mature enough to know what their relationship with Reddit is going to be like, and so I don't really touch it very much.
What is your relationship with Reddit?
I read it on occasion, but it's never like a very defining relationship in any way.
Okay, it's not a defining relationship.
Like even on Twitter, I have like that thing where I only get notifications from people I follow.
Okay.
So.
Are you aware of any other situations where some sort of strategy or Reddit has caused some sort of spark to happen in the League of Legends space?
I mean, I've found like random interesting tidbits on Reddit before. Like
one thing I would recommend is that ignore like the main Reddit. If you want to learn a champion at like a somewhat high level, I would recommend going to like that specific champion's subreddit, and they usually have like interesting or cool tips or like advanced combos or stuff you can do. So that is something
there's like an Ahri subreddit.
There's like Rengar mains, Cat mains.
The mains one. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
That is something that I recommend players to go to.
I'm trying to learn Caitlyn right now, and I went there and I learned the tricks about hiding the traps behind the towers.
Yeah.
And I was catching people left and right. Like I went from a really I was below 20% win rate to now I'm at a 55% win rate with her. Just off that alone, because people don't look. and they're dumb, and it's just free damage, free kill.
Enjoy it while you can. That kid's getting nerfed. I'm sure.
Yeah,
very soon.
I'm sad about that, but hopefully she won't get nerfed too bad, or I can just go back to Jinx or an MF because they're good for the climb.
I think sometimes you see, it's not necessarily always the most applicable information, but I've found that like someone on Reddit pretty often does like a weird like detailed analysis on some point that's interesting to me. So like I remember back in Curse at one point someone did like something about gold graphs, and like we actually had like a really insane first 15 minutes of the game or something, or I forget what it was, but it was something that was interesting about our team that like I didn't know, and it was interesting about other teams and like where their strengths were. And this was back before like Oracle's Elixir was the site and stuff like that, so there weren't that many like gold information things.
Yeah, I actually have all. So I only super got into competitive league because we ran like a third-party fantasy league, and so I just had like spreadsheets of all of the shit before I joined. I emailed Riot in 2014 like this 25-page paper on why Riot should make a fantasy league, and I like talked to Chopper and Waylon, I think, about it, and then they never told me. They just asked me very specific questions, and then 2 weeks later they released like the fantasy beta. So
If that's the case, I need to thank you, because for the past 3 splits, I've won dinner off my friends because of that.
nice.
Because I've been winning our league, so thank you for the free stakes. You're awesome for that.
Hey, thanks so much, Excel, for calling in.
All right, thank you. Oh, can I give a shout out real quick?
Okay.
I'm in my HP.
Oh, hey, that's great. Thank you for that shout. That's a great shout out. I'm always nervous
Thank
when
you.
somebody says they're going to give a shout out. You never know. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Parth, I just remember thinking back about like the old season 4 days. Dylan joined before you, right?
Yeah.
And then it was really funny because it seemed like Loco liked you more because he always included you and shit on social media. Was there a weird social dynamic between the 3 of you? I don't know if this is too personal of a question.
I don't know. Maybe a little, but I never thought of it that way. Because the reason I went down to, because I was supposed to only be online, right? The reason I went to LA for the first time was because I was interviewing with SpaceX, and so I just asked Loco, "Can I come like watch scrims for a day?" And he's like, "Oh, just hang out here for like X period of time." And so that's the only reason why I even got to meet like Loco and the team at all. But in terms
what
of
were
dynamic,
you more impressed by, the SpaceX facility or the TSM house?
I didn't. The TSM house was something. That was like back in like the old days where like Dire, Centaur, and Loco would be sharing like one of the master rooms. Yeah.
What's the weirdest like living situation that you've had to put up with due to esports?
Oh, this is easy. So at one point Centauran moved to a different room. So when I moved in, I initially for like 2 weeks shared a room with Loco and Darius. It was like a giant room. There's like enough room for all of us. At night, I swear to God, Darius and Loco both sleep talk, and Darius is very aggressive. Like I just woke up one night to Darius like while asleep saying, "I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you." So that was terrifying. And then the second one was one time I woke up where Darius and Loco were both asleep, but they were talking to each other. So yeah, that was probably my weirdest esports moment.
Damn.
I later found out that a lot of people from Season 4 TSM actually had like weird things they did while asleep. Turtle did it too. Like Turtle used to sleepwalk. So, yeah.
Yikes.
Damn, we didn't have anything like that. We just had like weirder setups, but not as interesting of action.
Funny story, the only reason why I ended up hanging out with Doublelift was because I went to interview at NASA and then went to the Cheesecake Factory afterwards and met him. You know, funny.
That's not what happened. Do you even have a degree, Travis?
We should move on to the next caller. Scene has subbed. Thank you so much to Scene and YPS resub for 6 months. Pretty great subs. Great to get those subs in. You guys are fantastic people. Parth.
Hi.
How's things going? Have you been to Destroyer before?
I'm sorry, what not?
Have you been to Destroyer? It is a
Yes,
restaurant.
I have not.
Okay.
Why would anyone call a restaurant the Destroyer?
It's just called Destroyer.
Oh my god, dude! Fuck that place.
Yeah.
Is it the one that you tweeted out?
Yeah, Spelsy took me there today.
That seems like food that my food eats.
It was so there was burrata in that bowl at the bottom, and
Okay, that makes it slightly better.
and mushroom, and like that was just like the top of it, but it was a really zany place.
It's like all of it's like it feels so underprepared in some sense, where it's like, here's the food, I put something on it, now eat it. You know?
Yeah, I'm not. I'll pass on that one though. Thank you.
So someone took me there. It's like one of those. It's like, yeah, you know, maybe we can work out a deal where we work on something, and it's kind of like that's where they took me, and I was just like, what do I order here? Like, how do I not act grossed out? It was so awkward.
Yeah.
I think True Food Kitchen is like my limit of.
Wait,
True Food
Weird.
Kitchen is
Good.
super normal.
Yeah, I know it's good, but it's like it's more health focused.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
That's the limit of your health focus?
Yeah, that is the limit of my health focus.
Yikes. All right. Well, we've got I'm also Mark on the show right now. I'm also
Hey.
Mark. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. Just studying for finals. It's kind of late over here.
Nice. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling in from State College, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. All right. Well, what do you got for us tonight?
Well, I think overall coaching in like League of Legends still hasn't fully matured, especially in like the Western scene. And I feel like teams, especially when like franchising just started, don't really know what they want from coaches yet. And I think this is why you see a lot of like returning names and kind of the old guard coaches like Loco, like just kind of staying around. And I think it's kind of also caused a bloating in the amount of coaching staff that per team. That you see a lot more analysts or other more like fringe niche people in the coaching staff.
Well, sorry, what was the question?
Well, it's
Well,
not quite. He's
it's
just
just like
he's making a statement.
So Part's not used to the show. Sometimes people just come in and they think something, and
That's
you
ideal.
You debate them.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
actually
yeah.
what we prefer. Is people are just like, I think
we need
coaching
to be
staffs are bloating, and there's recycled talent. They all suck balls.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is the part where you tell me I'm wrong, right?
I mean, I mean, technically you're right, but what's the alternative? Like, are you gonna put together like an incredible team and then just bet it all on like a rookie coach?
No, but I
Or a
feel
new
like
coach?
I feel like a lot of teams are now bringing like Korean coaches. I think like what team was it that had Rapid Star now? I think it's like that they brought in
FlyQuest.
yeah, FlyQuest has Rapid Star. C9 famously brought in like Reaper. You guys have Song now. And
Kane is the first
Kane as
Korean
well.
coach who's won NA.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a weird approach to coaching where you bring in these Korean coaches who don't know the culture, they don't speak the language, and then they have a lot of game knowledge, but the communication is kind of lacking between the coach and the player. And then I don't feel like you really need to teach players more game knowledge. I feel like coaches should just be like facilitators where they help the players kind of form more robust ways of thinking about the game rather than kind of teaching them the game. Because if you have to teach a player the game, I feel like you should just find a different player.
Well, it's a mixed bag, right? Like every team is gonna need a different type of coach. Like, say a team like Golden Guardians, who, as Hunter said yesterday, is like a very development-focused org, and they do want to work with a lot of rookies. It makes sense to have like an experienced coach with a lot of game knowledge to help train them in aspects of their role. Whereas if you have a team like the current TL, where all 5 players are like veterans who've been playing around for like multiple years, you don't necessarily need that. So there is like a middle ground, just depends on like the players that you have. There's some teams where they have clear like leadership roles within the team. Like say a team has someone like Hai or Peter or Bjergsen. You don't necessarily need someone who's like authoritative and needs to be that kind of person. Whereas if you have like a more calmer team, like, let me think, maybe Clutch. Clutch is a team where I don't think anyone has like a very like loud personality. You could do with a coach who can help like lead, set a direction. So I think every team has like a different dynamic, and it just depends on the org whether or not you want to build your roster and then bring in a coach, or have a coach that you trust and that you build a roster around. Because if you look at examples, CLG is a team where the entire their roster for the last 2.5 years has been built around Tony and the environment and the structure that he wants to set. Whereas there are other teams who always who believe in certain players and build the roster around them, and then they add the coach. So I think every org right now does it very uniquely. But I do think at some point it'll get to where every org has a philosophy that they're comfortable with, and they know what kind of coach and roster they have, and you'll see a lot more longevity in that space. But right now, I think it's a pretty mixed bag of what every org wants to do.
But Parth, Reddit told me that you need a coach who's gonna 1v9 and tell them all exactly what to do and get everyone on the exact same page and be a leader and all that. What are you telling me, that someone doesn't need to do that sometimes?
Yeah, I don't think any coach can or will ever 1v9. There's few instances, but I don't think coaches have made or broken. Okay, I guess I can't make that statement because I also don't know the intricacies of what other coaches do. But I think the impact of coaches is very unknown right now. I'll put it that way.
What do you think about Coma? Do you think he was close to, based off what you've read, and maybe if you have any inside information, do you think Coma is someone who's close to 1v9ing? Because I think the community sometimes thinks of him that way.
I don't know anything about Coma. I've read some about him, and then the one thing I do know about Coma is he always he's super chill when he's outside of the scrim room. Every time I've seen Coma, he's grabbing a drink with Impact or something, or he's super jovial as a character. So I can never see him in that break out the belt meme. But I'm sure it might exist to an extent.
What do you think of Zixlal, just between us?
I think he's really cool. I think he is
just as a person.
No,
he's cool, but he sucks.
Yeah.
So actually, Dylan will back me up on this. In 2016, no, not 2016, 2015, every time we would prep draft scenarios, we would always have 20 or 30 or some amount that we were going in with a base, and there'd be one or two we would always highlight, being this is the worst case scenario. Tony was the one coach who would consistently find that one scenario on stage against us. So
you love Tony.
Yeah, I'm in love with Tony. Exactly. No, I think Tony is one of the few coaches that I think deserves to win an NA Coach of the Split award, but hasn't.
Doesn't it just kind of validate not winning it, though? Because if you think other people haven't deserved it and they've won it, then it's almost better that he doesn't also get thrown in that same category. He'll just always be on that.
There's another fact. Well, if enough coaches stay the same, the new thing about NALCS is no coach has won the Coach of the Split award twice. I think that's true.
Really?
So at some point it'll get to Tony. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's some weird ones, right? Because Chris won it, right?
Who?
The CLG coach.
CLG Chris?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought there's been some weird ones where technically you didn't win it once because Weldon won it.
Because that was no. The split that CLG won, Peter won it because TL ended up first in the regular season.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. No coach has won it twice in NA. So eventually I'll get to Tony.
Vital says Tony is Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, but Leo won one eventually.
Yeah. So eventually
for the Revenant.
Yeah, I mean that movie was too long.
That was just such a grow a beard, roll around the mud, act distressed, you'll get an Oscar. I don't know. He's done better work. It was sad that that's what won it.
Hey, I'm also Mark. You're still here. Mm-hmm. Do you have any additional thoughts or questions for Parth?
Well, I guess I had two more questions. I think one can get answered a little quickly. I was just wondering, do you think you'll see a homogenizing of coaches where it'll become more similar to each other as the league gets older, or do you think you'll still see this split where different teams want different types of coaches?
I don't.
It's hard to tell.
I personally don't think you'll see that because one thing about coaches in traditional sports that I think actually draws them closer together is you have more people. So like you have benches and all this other stuff. There's like rotations of players that you swap in and out. And with league, it's like there's 5 core guys that you want to work with nonstop, and then like the coach, and like those 6 people, because they work so much tighter together, need to find a solution that works for them. Yep. And that might vary. Whereas like when you have 30 or 20 players or 25, whatever the number is, 50 if you're on football, like you have a larger separation because you are less intertwined with any individual person. Whereas the low player count means that the coach works much closer in proximity than in any other like traditional sports comparison, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like a golf coach in that way, where like golf caddy / coaches all perform like really different functions for like their golf, from my understanding at least. I should probably not talk that much about golf.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger
and
Woods.
I was also
Go ahead.
I was also wondering, I didn't know if you were going to go anywhere with the Tiger Woods.
No. I was chiming in,
I was also just wondering, do you think you kind of see like a slimming down of like the overall coaching staff as the league gets older? Because I feel like now there's just a lot of kind of, I don't want to say unnecessary people, but I feel like there's a lot of like jobs that have been split into 2 jobs. Like I feel like one person could do some of the jobs that multiple people are doing now in the scene.
While that's a little bit true, every team and org is still trying to figure out, like, no staff member stays with you forever, right? So say you have like your coach and assistant coach, and that's all you technically need. You can't really rely on either of them sticking around for like ever. And even analysts that you end up getting, you have to sort of have backups and more. And so every split, you have to have like 1 or 2 analysts, even though you're not using them fully, to at least be training. So in case something happens, or if they end up specializing, or in some case, you just need to have more than just like the 2 people, even though you might not necessarily need them entirely.
Does that mean you think that Tony will eventually leave CLG?
I don't know. You can ask Tony. I'm sure he's in Discord or somewhere.
He's in chat. I saw him.
He doesn't come on the Discord. He always hides from the Discord, but he's in Twitch chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I've necessarily agreed with like your premise that the coaching staffs are bloating necessarily, because I think having a main coach and assistant coach is very, very important, because it gives like a dynamic for them to bounce off each other, where sometimes if you just have one coach, you can probably feel pretty bad. And then like there's analysts, and you can break those out into a lot of different roles when you really come down to it, like scouting other regions, scouting teams within your own region. There's people who are going to kind of be doing your grunt work for your own team about like track this stuff in scrims. And then you can also look at positional coaches, and maybe those people need more game knowledge experience. And so you can end up with if you find the right people, I think a pretty robust coaching staff. And I don't think every team is there yet, so I don't think I'm ready to call it bloating yet.
Yeah.
By the way, Nick Allen would really like to know your answer about if Tony's going to leave CLG in the future. He's in Twitch chat right now yelling. He's like, "What do you think, Parth?"
If Tony's ever going to leave CLG?
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you, Tony?
Good answer.
You can message me.
Yeah.
Privately.
Okay. Whoa, poaching! Whoa, right.
Jesus. All right, so we kind of wrapped up the bloating conversation, I guess, or about teams being bloated. Thank you so much. I'm also Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right, moving on to the next caller. Would like to Twitch chat. Would like to give a shout out to Shidler9. Boba Cola gifted a sub to Vital. Blogio NM. Boba Cola gifted a sub to Nick Allen. And 2 Nguyen 397 subbed as well. So thank you, everybody. Also, it is the last day of the month to hit up Patreon. I'm going to be doing an AMA for the higher sub tier people.
Or the other thing, too, is if you have previously subbed or patronized Travis, now you should go and undo it in case you forgot.
Yeah, because earlier I tweeted like it was the last day to sub to my Patreon. And the only thing that happened was somebody took away their subs, so they remembered that they were about to get charged and canceled it. So I'm down on the day, but I'm gonna be doing an AMA for people on the Patreon. Finding Peace is here. How's it going, Finding Peace? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Daytona Beach, Florida.
Daytona Beach, Florida. Don't they have a like a race that happens there?
Yeah, the Daytona 500.
Yeah, nice. All right. See, I know about your city. I'm an expert, really. Is there? What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
I wanted to talk about kind of the problems with teams and how they go to fix about problems. And I guess my question is, if problems are so obvious to a lot of the analysts, especially on the analyst desk and people like Mark and Parth, how come teams aren't improving at such faster rates than they are? And I know we don't know that the things that go on behind the scenes and the internal problems, because a lot of it is, within the team itself. But if the problems are so consistent over weeks, then how come, if it's so obvious to everyone else, that teams aren't improving faster?
That's a very complicated question. I'll just use an example. So one of the big issues that TSM had last year was that, and I think Dennis got too much flack for this, which was they said that Dennis he was too aggressive, but also indecisive. He didn't have an impact in the early game. And so the real reason behind that problem, the problem was that Dennis was being influenced by factors that weren't necessarily his fault. For example, we would have an early game. We basically had level 1 planned for a bunch of different setups, and then early game plans in terms of what we wanted to do for our team comp 2 function against the one they had. But I think Kevin, Hanser, and Doublelift both had a very a similar playstyle or approach to the way that they played. And so the more stress or pressure that got put on them, the more they sort of went back to this one system. And so, for example, at Worlds, Dennis, at least in the practice, Dennis ended up just bouncing between Hanser and Peter. Hanser would take a trade and be like, "Oh, Dennis, I need you to cover me. Just drop that one camp and come cover me." And then Dennis would go cover him, and Dennis would be like, "Okay, I just covered for Kevin. He got his base off. He's going to come back on the map. I need to go jungle down and take all these camps before I can do anything else. So we'll take Dragon in 2 or 3 minutes." And then by the time Dennis is done taking 1 camp or 2 camp, Peter and Vincent would get into some weird trade, or something would happen that's out of their control, and then Dennis would be forced down there. And so in many cases, Dennis was forced to Dennis wasn't very authoritative in terms of what he wanted to do. And that was more of a personality thing, and not necessarily something that we, even though we tried to fix and help give him ideas or ways that he could influence or adapt or change on the spot. Those were just built through experience. And it had to have been the entire team who had to recognize this as an issue and each solve their own individual problems in solving it. And so the overarching problem that Red said was Dennis didn't do anything in the early game. Came down to a very complicated situation of what our plan was in the early game, how the early game went, what weird things happened in the side lanes, and how they expected Dennis to react to it. And that entire pressure is something that neither Dennis nor the players could really do for each other. And that's one system in which it was hard to see from the outside, but it's super complicated on the inside to fix.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of situations with players where forgetting skill, right? Because it's that's another thing too, is some players you get in mismatches and they can't quite play the matchup how they're playing versus somebody else. I think Bjergsen is a player who is kind of notorious for doing this to people, where you play the matchup versus the rest, especially back in the day before. I think other mid laners have caught up a lot to Bjergsen, but in season 4, in season 5, you would play somebody and you would play this matchup and it would go fine. Then you play Bjerg and he would dick you, and then whatever else problems that you have on your team are suddenly exacerbated. And so forgetting that there's skill gaps in the league as well. A lot of the problems go back to play style and decision making and who people are more on a fundamental level than just League of Legends. A player who is aggressive and tailing those tendencies to teach them when to play safe and like how to shift their mindset and like that kind of stuff is a lot more difficult than just being like, you died here by being pushed too far up. Stop doing that. Because it's like a more root problem than just that. It's like how they think as a player, and it's the opposite's true as well. Like, you're not playing aggressive enough when you could have pushed this lead harder. You didn't really do it, and then like this is a matchup that we picked you to win. It's Jace versus this, and you played a little scared, and now we don't have a lead where we thought we'd have a lead. And like those problems can be much deeper than just game knowledge, and those are hard to fix, I think.
I actually totally get that, but I guess what makes me the most curious about it is when those issues get pointed out, like, hey, you weren't aggressive enough in the early game, Svenskeren, for example. So would that not be something you would bring back to scrims through the week? You would work on it entirely through the week, like, hey, we just noticed that you should be doing this better, you could be doing this better, or you just need to focus on being this type of style during the week, during scrims and during practice, and then the next week, you just have the same problem over again. Does that like not play a factor, and it still comes back to how you are like as a player, like mentality wise? Or
well, so like that example you just gave is not actionable, right? Like when you give feedback to a player, it needs to be actionable. Like, be more aggressive. Like, what the fuck does that really mean? Like, you need to find out what that really means, as well as handling the social dynamics of it. Like what Parth was saying, a lot of that problem was like how their players interacted with each other, never mind what Sven's individual problems are with it. Like it's very complex situations that lead to pretty binary looking outputs, where it's like, you die too much on invades. It's like, all right, but like that can lead to a lot of, like, maybe your warding is not good enough, and it's because of these things, and someone doesn't do the right thing on the top side. Like, it's a very complex game, I think, that looks a certain way, like player dies, bad play, but like an uncountable number of things can lead to that situation.
Yep. So is it more like ghost hunting to find the root of a problem then? Or is there like some kind of basis where you go, I mean, you know, like you said, it could be any reasons why you're doing it. Maybe your warding's not good enough. Maybe your pathing isn't the smartest, but then are you not just ghost hunting to find a reason? Is that why it maybe is taking a little longer to improve on certain areas?
What do you mean ghost hunting? Like, are you just kind of burning out and doing random things? I mean, what you're basically saying is that there's only one problem and you have an entire week to address it, but that's not true. At the end of the week, you have to like identify, okay, the next week's coming, here's our next week's opponents, here's how we're gonna change up, like, here's the priorities and the champions that we're gonna increase and decrease, here's like the goals that we need to set both team-wide and individually for each player that we need to improve on, because it's not like one problem for one person that's persistent. It's like all 5 players have multiple problems and the team has multiple issues that you need to resolve during that week. It's not like you can just spend the entire week trying to fix one thing and it'll like make your team drastically better. So it kind of does get diminished a little bit because you are trying to fix a lot of other issues. One example is like, and no one like really saw this, but in 2016 when like TSM was winning a lot, we actually created a lot of bad habits in terms of with players because they would play a lot of super aggressive and not get really punished for it. And so we had to make a conscious decision to basically change our play style in order for it to be more comprehensive. And so one of the things that we were criticized against when we won against CLG in the semis of 2016 summer was that we had like a 5 to 6K goal lead, but we were playing in a way that we thought that would maximize our chance of winning, but everyone else who saw the game said that, oh, TSM is being super indecisive about winning this game. They must be nervous or scared. And so the things that you see that are problems and vice versa, there's a lot of things underneath the surface that all teams and all players and all staff members are working on. And just because you see a problem, it might not even be like the biggest problem that everyone else in the team sees.
And that's on top of the fact that like the game's changing too. So like you don't just get to sit in a vacuum and fix people. You have to address like, well, holy shit, I didn't know Sion did that. And then that's like another problem. Like, well, what do we do with Sion strategically? Like those are issues that you need to talk over as a team because there's a finite number of resources. And now instead of just fixing the fact that one player isn't aggressive enough or something. It's like there's a whole new champion that's out. Where does this affect everyone's priorities? Because now we're changing our bans up, and that means these matchups are open, and you have to. There's a finite amount of time to work on all this stuff.
So then I guess I would ask specifically to you, Mark, since you have been an analyst and both on a team and on the desk, how much of that do you really take from the analyst desk when you're working with the team? Like, well, I'm sure you watch and you see what they might say, but do you actually take anything, or is it just kind of like we know what we're doing in the background and just kind of focus on that?
I think like you hear a lot of analysts say, like when they watch the games back, they usually mute the casters. And it's usually because like the casters don't know what the communication was. And so, like someone dies for some reason and like you have no idea what the communication was on the team. And so it almost doesn't matter. And when I was, starting out, they didn't have like the voice comms live and stuff like that. And analyst desk is the same thing. Like, sometimes they can point out some interesting stuff, but I don't think you'll get significantly more value. It's fine to listen to. Like, I know a lot of teams, and we did it too. Like, they would come back from their game. It's the end of the game. It doesn't matter anymore. It's over, especially in a best of one. And like sometimes you would just sit and listen to like what the analyst desk is saying, just to like process it. But it's not necessarily something where you're like, I don't think anyone is super absorbed into what the analyst desk is saying on the team side. I don't know if Parth ever felt different.
I think the purpose of like the analyst desk and the casters is to make the game entertaining for the audience and give reasons why things are happening. And those reasons, I think, by and large, aren't necessarily correct or like complete opinions. And so if you are from a team, you're never going to go back and look at their opinions or what they're saying because they're catering to a completely different audience than what you're trying to do.
So Mark's wrong. So when I'm watching the analyst desk, Mark doesn't know what he's talking about. That's my takeaway.
No, it's just Mark rightly does not have the complete picture.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to tell him whenever he makes a statement in the future. And I'll be like, Mark?
Well, you didn't have the complete picture.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, like, his audience is like the people watching and not us.
Yeah, the plebs.
Well, right. And like what you're like to Parth's point, like what you're trying to get out of it is very different because like a lot of what you do on the analyst desk is more narrative storytelling about like how things are stacking up in the league than like let's run through every scenario that could have resulted in that death that we probably won't even know anyways. So it's like, to use an example that I talked a lot about, I think a fair amount at least over the course of Hotline League was like Altec and how good is Altec and this kind of stuff. And I feel like we touched on it a lot. And like the reality is I really don't know what's going on in Echo Fox that's resulting in the output that we've been talking about. But at the end of the day, as an analyst, it is my job to say, I don't think, or give my opinion on what the performance is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Finding Peace, for coming on the show.
Thank you. I'm big fans of all three of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right. We've just got a couple more callers to get through in the next 15 or so minutes. Do you want to say thank you to Ozzy Ferper, Icarus, really hard to pronounce, CG Shadow as well for resubbing all those folks subs. Thank you so much. How are you doing, Parth? How are you hanging in there?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
You okay?
I actually remembered a funny story. Do you remember I tweeted at one point, if something super annoys me, I'll just like write a rage thing and then won't send it out or publish it.
Parth
one of them was,
and he's told me this before too. Whenever something is frustrating him, like something Riot's doing or team or community perception, he writes a long rant about it, and then he's like, maybe I'll post this one, and then eventually he just deletes it.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, I don't delete it. I have them all, just never published. One of them was actually when they did the original 80 carry tier list, like way back when. And this was like Keith was 10th or something. Which is
when
first
Peter
of all,
was B tier.
Yeah, I think it might have been that one.
Well, it depends because I think I might have been there for the first one. Well, it depends how long ago because I think they did tier lists like way back. I did one where I put Keith 10th and we had like trending and like I put looking to go down from 10th just to like meme it up. So I don't know if it was that one.
Okay, so I'm like, as much as I hate it, it's like, okay, it clearly draws in the audience and creates discussion. But then someone like Keith was doing an interview, and one of the casters asked him how he felt about his placement on the tier list, and I was so fucking angry. Like, I wanted Keith to just say, it's because you guys are fucking dumb. Don't ask me questions like this. Because it's like super, super disrespectful to like pro players when there's like, oh, I'm putting in 14 hours a day and I'm trying to improve, and I think my skill level is X, and I'm not getting like, I have like a bunch of reasons why I am performing a certain way, and now this idiot caster who doesn't know anything that's going on is asking me about my placement on his shit tier list. Jesus, I was so angry then, and I'm still angry now just thinking about it.
Why didn't you
Holy
publish
hell.
it?
What?
Why didn't you publish it?
See,
you gotta publish these things.
I wrote it out. It took me a while. I was like on a flight, I think, somewhere. I like wrote the entire thing, and then it's just sitting somewhere. So.
Yeah. So I actually remember that interview because I think James and I will usually toss interviews, or we'll get the toss to us, and that was a yikes moment. We were just like, oh.
Yeah.
Because if I remember that one right, I think like I forget who the caster was, but I think they asked a similar question two times in a row too, and it was just like super awkward.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like the one thing people will never understand is pro players and coaches and staff will never ever like defend themselves publicly, because in any way that they defend themselves,
lose.
You are like throwing someone else in the org or the team under the bus, and so like they just don't have that luxury.
What if
they can never?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, they just can't.
What if I ask Peter about? I think I asked him at the time about him getting placed B tier on Freaks list. Like that. That's probably okay, right? Because that's giving him an opportunity to like get back at whatever.
I mean, it like depends on like the context in which you do it. Like you and Peter are friends and you're doing it jokingly, and Peter is not someone who is gonna like he knows that his placement was like no one believes in it and it's garbage. Whereas like the context in which Keats was done was entirely different.
I think it also depends too, like how it's being done is pretty important. So like, I think if you're like memeing it up, or like, oh yeah, you supposedly are B tier, like you're going up against this guy who's way higher than you in the tier list, kind of like joking way. But if you're like actually like asking them about their placement, it's weird.
Well, so why didn't you publish it, Parth? Because that's like you ranting about it and writing it up on a plane is never going to affect change. This feels like the type of conversation we'd have over one of our dinners, but like I mean,
I'll just reach out to the people who annoyed me and like message them.
Did
privately.
you?
I don't think I did in that instance, but I don't know why.
It's not too late. Yeah. Hey, 2 years ago you interviewed.
But like you never ever like put. I don't think casters should ever put like entertainment over the integrity or the competitiveness of the players or the game. If it ever crosses boundaries or one becomes more important than the other, I think there's a big problem.
Sorry, can you clarify how? I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just, why would that be an integrity or competitiveness issue?
Or sorry, not I don't know. It's just like it shows a real lack of respect for like what the players do and put in.
Yeah, so like his point is like if you. It's one thing to like call a player bad because you think they're bad, and it's another thing to like actually be disrespectful to that person, and that's not cool. I think is what Parth is saying, because it's no longer about like this guy's busting his balls and is coming up short, and it's like what an idiot, like, or something, and it's just not the same thing.
And it's one of those things like now a bunch of teams are going to MSI, and naturally not every team is going to do well, and instead of celebrating this team that went to MSI, the team that say gets 4th or 5th or doesn't make it out of groups is going to get fucking memed for being like super shit and like disrespecting their region, instead of being like, oh, this is the best team in our region and we should like root for them and respect like all the work and effort they've put in. Like, I'm not a big fan of TL during the split because I'm obviously like competing against them, but they are representing us at this international tournament, and regardless of what the result is like, they are the best that we have in our region to offer. And yeah, I just think that kind of gets lost a lot.
Hey, Yellow Sub is on the show. Yellow Sub, where are you calling from?
Holy shit, that wasn't his question.
No, it wasn't.
He hasn't asked a question yet.
Yellow Sub has just been sitting here silently the entire time. I don't like to call attention to that because then YouTube leaves comments like, why would you get so awkward when they're just... Yellow Sub, where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from Austin.
Austin. I fucking love Austin. Like, if I had to live in Texas, you know, because I was forced to, I would definitely pick Austin.
Yeah, it's a great place. A lot of gaming stuff. Recently saw Rick Fox speak at DreamHack. It's pretty cool.
I had a really good time at South by South. I still have a vlog I need to publish from there. It's half built on a timeline in Premiere. What do you want to talk about?
It actually kind of deals with MSI. So I have the, I guess, aggressive TSM flame statement. I think so. What I think is that TSM not making MSI this year is a good thing for NA, because I believe that TSM has a major coaching / management issue that has persisted throughout each season that prevents them from international success. And I believe that there needs to be serious change at the top level for TSM's coaching / management if they want to make their goal of winning worlds to become a reality.
All right, so here's the Parth was like, all right, I need to prep myself for the flames of the hatred. I was like, no, tonight's gonna be fine. Then you call out and come in and say this. All right, I think the first thing to do is say like what is this issue? Because just saying that there's an issue is
sure. So
is this
like,
the Reggie?
This is
issue?
like the classic like Redditor armchair analysis.
Yeah, that's what the
right?
show is. Don't worry. That's what everyone knows it is.
Fair enough. So the issue is that TSM, more than any other North American organization, has received the most amount of international opportunities. And I think barring 2014 Worlds group, right, they made it to quarters. I think every other, not like IEM or Rift Rivals, I'm not counting those. I'm only counting MSI and Worlds, to be fair. I think that they have not performed well. So that's why I'm saying I think there's some sort of issue that continually prevents them from international success that I believe is at a top level coaching / management issue.
Okay, but how do you identify that as a... Sorry, I'll let Parth rebuttal in here. It's just the only thing that's kind of weird is you've said like there is an issue, but you haven't sort of explained what it is.
It's kind of like diagnosing a problem without really saying the symptoms, I guess, is what Travis is saying. Because it's like, sure, they've underperformed, you could argue, at international competition, but you haven't said why that's the management's fault, I guess.
So I think it's because ultimately the TSM organization has received an abundance of opportunities to compete internationally. And I think they're the only consistent thing, right, that has been to those international events, but has still squandered it, right? Like the players have changed. And
so you're upset that despite the changes, we've gone to international tournaments X times, but haven't shown results.
Yeah, I guess that's a way to say it. Sure.
Okay, so then why don't other orgs just be better?
Well, so like, sure. I mean that's fair. Like I agree that
TL did it this year, and they have now the opportunity to represent us at NA, or us at MSI.
So I guess my rebuttal would be to that: when TSM gets first place in the region and they go to Worlds, but C9 is the only NA team to make it out, even though they're like second or third. They're not the first seeded team. It still is. It's baffling why TSM.
Wait.
Sure.
You are baffled why another team in a completely different group can win one or two extra best of ones. That's what's baffling to you.
Well, I wouldn't say it's just.
You literally just said that. You literally just said it is baffling to me that another team in a completely different group accidentally won an extra best of one.
I mean, that's not the sure. I guess that you can say it like that. Sure.
That's a logic problem. That's not like a TSM management problem.
I think the major thing though is that, especially at this last year's group stages, I think definitively TSM had the easiest group, but they still didn't make it out.
Really? How was it definitive? Explain it to me.
I think compared to the groups that both Immortals and C9 had, that they couldn't make it out of that.
I don't know what was. Explain to me again. You just said you just told me there were 3 different groups, and I believe that A group was better than B. Why was the other group better?
Okay, so Group A. Let me pull it up just to make sure.
Group A was SKT, EDG, C9, and AHQ. Group B was Immortals, Fnatic, Kingzone, or not, whatever the fuck they were called before, and then Gigabyte Marines. And then Group D was TSM with Flash Wolves. Parth, you remember the other two? It was
Flash Wolves, World Lead, and Misfits.
Misfits, yeah, that's right.
I think out of the aggregate of that, I think TSM got, I think, the second seeded China team and the third seeded European team. Is that, or the second seeded European team is what it was. And then in Group B, Immortals had first place Korea. I think that's an obvious given. And then Fnatic was the third place European team.
Okay, my first question is, do you think the seeding into groups accurately represents their skill level?
No, I don't think that.
Okay, so you can't use that argument.
But I think okay, sure, it doesn't accurately represent it, but the point I'm saying is, that's not really what I was trying to get at, but the point I'm trying to say is that I still think that Group A and Group B were harder than Group D.
Yeah, but again, you have shown me no credible evidence why that is the case.
Okay, so I guess then...
Yes, Reddit might have told you that they were easier groups or hard groups, but until you definitely show me proof that they were better or worse, how can you make that claim?
Okay, I guess that's fair. I don't know how to prove to you how Group A or Group B is better then.
Okay,
I mean, do you
so
think
then, so then let's come to the conclusion that the groups were, within reason, pretty similar. Because I do think that Misfits took SKT to almost 5 games and had the chance of winning, and unless you're calling SKT a shit team. And I think WE was also pretty credible.
Yeah.
And they did pull out really good strategies during their run.
Sure.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay. They were reasonably good teams.
Okay.
And it was best of ones.
Okay.
So again, explain to me how it's baffling that groups that were relatively even and it was best of one, it's baffling that C9 might have won an extra best of one.
Okay, but
Logic me through this.
Okay. That's not the part I said was baffling. The part I said was baffling was...
No, that's exactly what you said it was baffling.
No, I didn't say it was just for this world. I meant for the entirety of their international, I guess, showings. That's the part that's baffling, is that they've received so many opportunities, but they still come short.
But that's a different argument. We have gone to X amount of international tournaments, but we haven't made it further. But that doesn't mean any other team also has done that.
Sorry, what do you...
He's saying if C9 makes it further in one world, you can make that argument, but then the other argument of TSM always failing is something else.
Okay.
If I understood it right.
Okay.
How about this? You write me a paper, email it to me. I will read it, and I will respond to you. And we can publish it if you really want.
I mean, like I said, I'm just a Reddit Orange analyst.
Yes, I know. You are a Redditor. I agree with you.
I'm not saying that my opinion is necessarily correct. It's more so
It is definitely not. I agree.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's more so just frustration, and I guess
here's what I understand, right? I agree that fans should be frustrated at this org. We set out to do something that is incredibly hard. We put in as much effort as we can, and even in the off season, we make the changes that we believe that is necessary for our team to do better internationally. Because I do think that if we had kept Peter and if we'd kept the previous roster, we would have won NA and we would have another shot. But we philosophically do want to do well at Worlds at some point, regardless of what you want to believe. And if you're disappointed with our results, that's fine. But until you can show another organization that's done more or better, or has sacrificed as much as our players and organization and staff has, don't come up with this bullshit that, oh, you're disappointed in us. You're disappointed. It's just really garbage.
Hey, Yellow Sub, I can hook you up with Parth's email address after this if you guys want to continue the conversation. I do appreciate you calling in, but just for the purposes of moving on, because we are starting to run out of time, we're going to have Mark grab the next caller. But thank you so much for your call.
Yep, sounds good. Take care.
Take it easy, dude.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that made it all worth it.
Parth, I just out of curiosity,
all those not written messages. Oh, it made it all worth it.
Parth, just like I'm kind of curious, is that because obviously you were a little stronger with that guy than I've seen you in the past. Is this like a situation where for a long time you've sort of seen comments like this or Twitter posts or whatever, and it's kind of like something that's built up with you?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, he called in and I answered his question.
Sure. Just a little bit of a harsher tone than I think a lot of people were expecting, but that's fair. Let's move on to the next caller here. In just a second, Mark is running off to get him. Hopefully, he has a less controversial. Actually, I think I pulled this guy, so I think I know his last one.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about.
Strive, you're here right now. Where are you calling from?
Fort Myers, Florida.
From Florida. Okay, so we had a Florida caller earlier. And you are a Twitch sub. Thank you so much. Do you have a lighthearted anecdote or anything that you'd like to liven up the show before you go on?
Yeah. Hey, Parth, TSM fan. So thank
How's
you
it going?
for everything. So basically, my topic. It's kind of long-winded, so I'll try to shorten it as best I can because I know you're running out of time. I have a few bullet points here, so I'll go through them. I think that the NALCS should expand the Academy League and kind of treat it more like how the NCAA does with football. And not to, I mean, obviously you're going to pay the players, but to to the extent of kind of brand building, like you talked about with Frostgaren 2 weeks ago, we could get some of these younger players in here and they can kind of make a name for themselves, start streaming early, build up a lot of hype around themselves for like when they will eventually come into the league. I think you could do it during the off season. So like this brief period between, God, I'm sorry, my heart's beating after that last call. I'm so cringy.
We're all gonna calm down. Don't worry,
Yeah.
Parth's not gonna wreck your NCAA question.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, kind of get those players some more exposure. You know how Golden Glue has already built up, a bit of a following. He obviously went back to Academy, but I mean, you could start getting some of this homegrown talent, some more exposure. Give Mark something to do in the off season since he's been bored. And let's see what else we got here.
While you're
with more after you discuss.
While you're going over your notes, Mark, can you explain a little bit for those, including myself, who are unfamiliar with the NCAA structure or sort of what he's referencing by having it moved to that structure?
Well, I'm actually not 100% sure what he's talking about because, like, depending on what sport you look at, they're all different. But like, I don't know if he means like.
Can I just
drafting.
clarify it?
Yeah,
Okay,
like drafting
sure, go
for
for it.
college or something. I'm not sure.
Drafting would be cool to implement. I'm sure like a few years down the road, but basically just kind of get them their own league, kind of promote it a little bit more, and treat it as like, hey, these are the up and comers. And so let's say like I have a favorite quarterback that I watch in college, and I get excited to see him make it in the big leagues, and that's kind of where I'm going with this.
I do think that Academy League I think is super important for the ecosystem for NA. Riot implemented it this year since more teams have since the franchise system, more teams can leverage it and do different things with it. I think every org is trying to figure out what they want to use their academy system for, whether it is to be like a scrim partner for their main team, or they want to build like one or two specific like players, or if they actually want to use like subs for their LCS team, or they want to like have them completely segregated and even use them to like farm talent. And in terms of, and they are even trying to figure out the number of resources they want to put into it. So I think this is a discussion that we can definitely have after the end of this year, maybe middle of next year, when all of the new orgs who came in, who are still trying to figure out their main LCS teams and their place in it, have had time to settle down, and then can focus on something like Academy.
Mark, you've been following Academy for a while. Do you agree with Parth's statement that we just kind of have to let it roll for a little bit until the main LCS league stabilizes?
A little bit. I mean, even yesterday you heard Hunter talking about how they weren't exactly sure how Academy League should function for them either. And so I think before you go around and tampering, or not necessarily tampering, but looking to improve it, you should first understand exactly what you have on your hands. I'm not sure the teams quite even know, and the scene quite knows, because initially Hunter was like, yeah, we'll just get like 5 randoms and we'll teach them League of Legends and hopefully we'll find a diamond in the rough. And then they just kind of got smashed and they weren't good scrim partners for their main team. And then you heard him kind of almost 180 a little bit on what they're looking to do this split, where like get a couple more veterans on the Academy team and make sure that they're capable of like making the best of our LCS team as well. And so like, I think there's also different approaches that might work. And so I definitely agree with Parth that like, I think waiting and seeing a little bit more is perfectly fine.
Parth, do you have an idea of how, maybe to turn around, like right now, do you have an idea of what you would like to see the Academy system evolve into, or do you have ideas on what it might be lacking right now?
I think there's a lot of things, but again, it comes down to the number of resources that both Riot and the orgs can put in. And I think a lot of the focus right now is still on stabilizing the LCS and recognizing like the first complete year in like this new system. Yeah. I do think that Academy players can like have opportunities to get a lot more exposure, which they don't yet. They can be like, they have opportunities to, they don't necessarily have to play best of ones, they can play best of threes, because if part of the stuff isn't streamed anyway, then we may as well give them more experience, maybe find more opportunities for the Academy players to play on stage. There's a lot of things that we can do for them, and I think we will do looking into the future. It's just we haven't reached that point yet where the resources that are currently dedicated to the LCS teams for the new orgs that came in can kind of go into there.
Gotcha. Anything else that you would add, Strive? You muted yourself. I don't know if you're still here.
Yeah, no. No, I think that's fair. Just wait for a while and see how it goes, and then think about how you can grow it, because I think it would be worthwhile for LCS to grow it, get people more games that they were upset about losing once they went to the best of ones. Yep. So, yeah, after a little bit to grow it. Sounds good. Thank you for letting me call in. Thank you, Omen, and thank you, Parth.
Every time, I love you guys. Every time you shout out the sponsor, that is brilliant. It creates a lot of work for me, because then I got to go back and find all these clips. Thank you, though. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Oh, we lost him, but yeah,
he was done. He was like, peace.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to get booted.
All right, so that is the show. Parth, how many messages have you? I noticed in the middle of that call, you're like looking over at your second monitor. I assume you were getting messages from people like, "Dang, Parth, you just went in."
Yo, some people were like, "Man, Parth is a," or after that or something. But like, I don't know. I think it's totally appropriate. Like, if you,
I mean, here's what, like, the caller calls in, says that there needs to be change at like the management level, basically implying, similar to our last caller last night, that like the person he's talking to should perhaps not have the job they have. I have no problem with letting that individual then use whatever.
I thought Hunter was too PC. I thought this was the show where you get to not be PC.
Yeah.
No, dude, I encourage everyone to come on here. A dumb question to just rip on it. Like, I've definitely ripped on a caller or two. And like, yeah, someone came in and was basically like, TSM sucks from the top down because they haven't won internationally very much. And it's like, but no one's done better. Yeah. TSM is the most successful franchise in North American history by far. It's not even close. And then like, they don't have any specific thing that they want to point to. Like, you know what? If someone comes on there and says that to me, I'm like, go fuck yourself. You know, like, I think that's totally fine.
No, if the caller had come in and said like, hey, I actually think that like maybe TSM's they should have had like a stronger set of AD carries, and Parth went in on him and like, really? You want to talk to me about our AD carry pool? That's a little different than like, I think TSM should maybe not have the leadership they have, and then Parth kind of goes in on him. So I think that's the big difference.
I think it's also like maybe sorry, Parth.
Some of the arguments are justified, right? Like the number of opportunities we've had are a lot more, and I can see why it is incredibly disappointing. Like every time we go to international tournaments and don't do well, we are insanely disappointed too. But I've been with them since, wow, what was it? Since Worlds 2015. And I can like recount to you every international tournament, like the narrative for our team there. In 2015, I didn't think there was a shot that we were going to make it out of that group. Like Bjerg knows, Darius knows, everyone on that team knew that we were not making it out of that group. At that point, like a lot of players were looking to retire already. Like Darius and Lustboy were already pretty checked out. And so the team environment was pretty meh. The next one was 2016 Worlds. That's the one I feel the most regret for, because I think compared to every other team there, our level at that point, the 2016 roster, was a lot higher. And I do think that if we had prepared, or like if we tweaked a million different things, we could have probably made it out of that group and maybe gone far. And that's like my one big regret at an international tournament is 2016 Worlds. 2017 MSI, we had to restructure the entire team to play around Turtle. And so I don't even think that was the one split where I do think that C9 should have gone instead of TSM, because I think C9 was the better team at the time. I even told Mark this when we came back, and I was
yeah.
And like we had this conversation. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure C9 just was a better team, and actually would have done better at MSI 2017. And last Worlds, we just had, like, it was a combination of the meta and how we played the early game that it didn't really matter if we had gone further. If we were in a different group or against a different set of opponents, we wouldn't have done that well, because at that point we just weren't, like, we didn't understand how to play it out. So, I mean, sometimes it's like you have a chance to and you blow it. Sometimes like the things just don't align. And every time the players and like the org and the staff members that go to every international tournament learn a lot from it. Like we're definitely better as an org. Like Peter is better as a player. Dirk is better as a player for everyone he's gone to. And that experience is like the same thing that carries them through like their own region, so they have more chances. And so at some point, I hope NA continues to abide by the idea that they do want to do super well internationally. And I'm super proud of players like Peter and Bjerg who like carry that torch.
So let me ask you, Parth, just out of curiosity, why not have given that answer? Like, why not take that tact with the last caller? I'm not saying you should have, by the way. I'm just curious. Like, you gave that answer now. You could have responded to the last caller that way too.
Yeah, but his question was kind of bullshit. So
yeah, I mean that's what I was gonna say. Is like, the guy wasn't like, what happened then that you think it's not management? You know, like I think if like, it wasn't managed,
there's a reasonable answer if the question was reasonable, but yeah,
like I don't think that guy was gonna get swayed if that was Parth's answer either. So like. You know, like, and that's the thing is a lot of people, some people are like, oh, those are a bunch of excuses. It's like, no, those are reasons. And like, I'm sure everyone in any of those situations where they came up short will take some level of fault for them. But the problem with that caller was also the assumption that like someone else could have done better. And it's like, that's probably not the case. Like, like in a perfect world, yeah, you can pretend that someone would have done better, but they weren't there for a reason. Like, I never went to a Worlds for a reason, you know, like.
So I might give a suggestion for callers in the future, because the second episode we've had to deal with this. Maybe don't call in and suggest that the person you're talking to shouldn't have their job.
No, do it, dude. I love it.
I can't believe Hunter was so PC yesterday.
Well, okay, Hunter's in a completely different situation. He is. Here comes the Travis Gafford Hunter defense, but Hunter is like an unpopular owner at the moment, or head on an unpopular team. You are like a very well-respected figure. He was talking to like another professional in the industry.
Arguable after this segment.
And I think you know, the situations were different. Parth Hunter just said in chat, "I love you, Parth," in all capital letters.
And to be fair, like a lot of people do have Parth's back for just being like, "Man, fuck that guy," because I mean, like anytime you give a strong opinion on something, like you're gonna increase connectivity with fans and people who think a similar way, and people who don't feel that way will not like you as much, and that's just how it always is whenever you're speaking your mind.
It's hard when there were people in Twitch chat last night saying Hunter shouldn't have his job. There was nobody in Twitch chat saying that to you tonight, Parth. But I do agree that Hunter was kind of, he probably could have.
Well, that one also kind of like
it kind of came out of left field, right?
It kind of came out of left field, and it was even like more directed. This guy wasn't like, Parth, you're the reason TSM has never gone anywhere in Worlds. Like. That's kind of how the last one was. This was more like I thought he was gonna go down the route of like the Reggie thing when I initially saw his or like when he initially started talking.
Oh, like tonight's caller was gonna say like, is Reggie too involved in the team or something?
Right.
Like
I thought that's where that was gonna go when he said there's management issues at the top, but like he didn't actually have anything to pinpoint, which is like, how do you even defend when someone's just like nebulously attacked? But I don't know.
By the way, Parth, you scared our last caller so much. The NCAA guy, he put in Twitch chat, "Sorry, my heart was literally racing from the call before mine. Sorry if I didn't phrase my point well or sounded shaky because I was really shook."
Okay. Next time people run into Parth, dude, just like in the LCS like parking lot, they're gonna be fucking scared of him. People are gonna be like making
fans will just be like nervous to come up and ask for a picture with Bjergsen because they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's the guy over there."
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
Parth's gonna turn into their security detail.
Yeah.
Is there anything this man can't do?
All right. Well, that's the show, everyone. Mark, do you have anything you want to say here at the end?
Nope. I'm happy Parth finally came on the show. It's about time.
Yeah. Parth, thank you for coming on. I think it was as always, like, I love chatting with you about this stuff. I always think that you have a really unique and well thought out answer to this stuff. It's kind of cool to go down memory lane with some of these TSM moments and get your experience because you've been around for a long time. Is there anything that you want to promote? Any long-form documentary series that a company that you work for produces or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have a few content pieces coming out in the off-season, but mostly just to all the TSM fans who are super disappointed by this split. We fully believe in the talent of our roster and even like the in our coaching staff, and we're going to be keeping and working with all of them for next split. I'll be helping Song and Lustboy sort of on the outside, helping them structure things. But outside of that, I hope we have a strong showing next split, and we will see you for another disappointing Worlds.
Well, if that doesn't get you hype as a TSM fan, I don't know what will. Thank you so much again to Parth for coming on the show. Thank you to Steve, who just sent 5,000 bits, literally paid by Steve. Said, "Nice show. Thanks for the great content, Travis. Always fun to watch. Hopefully see you in Berlin." Thank you to Cody Jungle and Little Kosh as well for their support in the final moments of this. I've got, if you're watching this and you missed last night's, we actually did 2 Hotline League episodes this week. This one with Parth, last night's with Hunters. I think they were both great and worthy of a watch. So if you watch this one, great news. You've got a whole another one to watch. And I think I should have some more content, exciting stuff coming out later this week. I'm going to talk about League of Legends Tinder. There's a video that's coming out about that. I'm looking forward to it. I just did an interview with their founders. So thanks, everyone, for watching. This has been Hotline League, episode 25.